In World War One, we had this phenomena of trench warfare, and trench warfare was pretty much the same, whether or not you were on which side. And it went something like this: you were rotated to the front, and you held your gun, and you waited, and then eventually the officer would come by and say, "Okay, get ready," and then the shelling would start, and you would sort of lose all your hearing, and your sort of like spatial sense of things, because it just becomes all vision, and except for one thing, and the shelling stops, and you get ready, and you just get ready, and you get ready, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and then you hear the whistle, and then you come out of the trench, and the better you come out of the trench together, it makes a big difference. Like the start. All right, so you have the start, and you get across no man's land, and a volley of bullets, and that's like nothing new. But what happens, and what makes trench warfare really kind of got its reputation, is if you got to the other side and you were able to overrun their position, because once you were able to get into their trench, it became hand-to-hand combat, and it was like the human race took a step backwards in the trenches of Europe. So what happens is the Europeans fight to a standstill. And on one side, there's a soldier who's done so many of these attacks that every time he does one and survives is more proof to him that he's special. But so they fight them. They're fighting to a standstill, and then something fishy happens. Um, the British intercept a memo from Germany to Mexico saying, "Hey, if you attack the United States, we'll give you some money, and we can be friends." And this memo is handed over to the press like instantly, uh, and like the last bit of isolationists and people wanting to keep out of this war fall apart, and America's in it. So they mobilize Americans, they draft Americans, and they draft German Americans in St. Louis, and they draft Irish Americans in St. Louis, and they unfortunately had to draft the Irish and Italians, Germans, and the black guys. So, as I was explaining to you about trench warfare, everybody's together and they're waiting for that whistle. And once they blow that whistle, it's a race through bullets. And the party is when you get to the other side and you get into the other guy's trench. And like I said, that's where the human race took a step backwards. But, and uh, they fought to a standstill. And so America's in it, whatever. And all these Americans, these German Americans, and these Irish Americans, and these Italian Americans, and these black guys. All right, so they keep the black guys separate from everybody else. And the reason they do that is because they don't believe that when they blow the whistle, that these black guys will come out of the trenches. And so they draft like 350,000 black guys and young black guys and American black guys. And they say, like, you're not good enough to fight with like an American flag, so we're going to put you on loan to the French, and you can clean up the latrine, boy. And so the white guys go off into the trenches, and they get to experience trench warfare, and they They pick up real quick. You know, the German Americans and the Italian Americans and the Irish Americans quickly learn the joys of the moment the human race took a step backwards. And so what happens is, you know, they turn over these black guys, these black American guys, to these French officers. And like, these French officers don't like miss an opportunity. Like, they have these guys, like these American guys, these young black guys, and there's 50,000 of them that are going to get a chance to fight, but they won't fight with white officers, and they're not going to fight with American flags, and so they're just going to get some French. The French want. The French will take. French want to do. Yo, you want to train the black guys? More power to you. Good luck. So the French officers are like, oh, thank you so much. And so the French officers start sorting out these black guys. And they start figuring out what is what with these black guys. Who are you? Who are you? And so one of the first things and the coolest thing is they sort out like the really young virgins, and they take these virgins and they give them like coffee, and they give them like chocolate, and they give them a pack of cigarettes, and they do it with a small group. They take these French officers take these young guys into town, and like, you have to understand that we're at war, and like, how you have to understand, you can't, it's hard to understand how messed up we were of a thing we were going into. Like, we quickly learned about trench warfare, and we brought all of our own racism over here, and now we've got a bunch of young black guys with coffee, chocolate, and a pack of cigarettes in France, and they're under the command of a French officer. And these particular guys are like too young to die in trench warfare. So these French officers take them, and they lose their virginity to French women first, and then they come back. And then it turns out that there were a lot of virgins in this group of 50,000 black guys, but like, they were beloved, you know, they were beloved. And these French guys are like, these French officers. And to make a long story short, that was the fun part for the French officers, was getting these guys to bang these French women. And but now was the hard part, and it was teaching them how to kill. And you have to understand that, like, for a young black man in America in the 1910s and 20s, the thought of killing a white man was so taboo. Your grandfather was a slave, so it was almost like unthinkable. And but these French guys, you know, they were heroes to these black guys. And so that was the fun part. Here comes the shit part. The shit part is leading these black guys across no man's land, and they're worried about it. But these black guys sort of trust these French officers, and It's like the first charge. I don't know. This is how it had to happen. Like, so this black unit gets up there, and they have these French officers, and the French officers say, "Get ready to shell these fuckers," and so they start shelling, and everything becomes audio. Everything becomes video. No sound except for one sound you're waiting for, and the black dudes are all lined up, and they blow that whistle, and they all step out of the trench, and the French officers are in front with like a pistol, and they're just walking forward in a volley of gunfire, and they get to that trench, and the French officers show them what's going on, and the black guys catch on real quick, and they become very successful at killing white men. Like they love their officers, their French officers, and they apparently fought so well in the trenches. You know, this is the trenches where humanity took a step backwards, and you know, there's been the stalemate going on. But these French officers had tapped this vein, and these 50,000 black guys are killing white men in hand-to-hand combat in Europe. And what happens is that that German soldier who's so used to surviving and killing and being immune to fear, and you know, and just like a expert at like hand to hand, but somebody tells him about these fucking soldiers, and like apparently they're just like the worst thing in the world. And apparently once they get into the trenches, apparently like you're done. And like apparently like there's like a bunch of them, and they've unleashed them on us, these maniacs, and we don't know what we're gonna do. And so these black guys, you know, get the hang of it, and they're pretty adept with a machine gun. Turns out that they can make a machine gun sing. Who knows? And they get really good at killing Germans, and you know, they got a good reputation among the German Americans and the Italian Americans and the Irish Americans for being pretty crazy. You know, even if they're under French control, like the reputation of these guys in trench warfare is pretty pretty monumental. And that German soldier who was immune to fear and really good at surviving, or you know, doing well in trench warfare, had a moment, and his imagination ran wild, and they surrendered.